heavier? A ton of bricks or a ton of feathers? Which is heavier?
They're the same.
They're the same?
They're the same.
They're the same. This is an example of fallacy. And what a fallacy is a mistaken belief, and it's based on an unsound argument. My relation to you, as you know, is I'm a student, like you. I was given a task to go and look up a fallacy and therefore teach it to you. Therefore, you should listen because you will know about fallacies, a certain type of fallacy, and then you will therefore be able to go out and identify what the fallacy is and therefore try to avoid it. Or you'll just be able to say, hey, Zach taught me that one. The fallacy that I will teach today is the fallacy of composition and the fallacy of division. And the fallacy of composition and division, they're similar, like very, very, very similar in structure, and therefore they can be considered the sibling fallacies. For example, the fallacy of division, it works like this. It's what is true of the whole and the parts is they have the same characteristics. What is true of the whole is also true of the parts. My example of this would be people are made of atoms. People are visible, therefore atoms are visible. The equation for this would be A is a part of B. B has the properties of X. Therefore, A has the properties of X. And again, what it basically is what is true of the whole is also true of the parts that are underneath it. But this fails because of its lack of justification for the conclusion. Again, another example would be a guy's house is half the size of most of the houses in the neighborhood. Therefore, the doors of his house are 3.5 feet high. Now that you've seen a little bit of what division is, I will go on to composition, which is basically the example that I gave you in the beginning. What is heavier, a ton of bricks or a ton of feathers? That is an example of composition. How it works is the characteristics of the parts are the same when they are gathered together in a whole. My example of this would be a tiger eats more food than a human. Therefore, all the tigers eat more food than all the humans. It concludes that what is true of the parts is true when the wholes are, when it's grouped together in a whole. But this fails because the characteristics are not always within the whole. They're not always within the whole when they're gathered together in a whole. Another example of this would be each brick weighs less than a pound. Therefore, the building weighs less than a pound. What we looked at today was the two sibling fallacies, composition and division. You have a better knowledge of what a fallacy is, this type of fallacy is, and you should be able to identify it now. And what I would like to do now is have you try it out. Can you come up with your own fallacy of composition and division? I tried it myself. I did it based on my persuasion speech that I'll be giving, or based on a factor within it. I was thinking about it. It was on abortion again. I was thinking about it, and I was thinking, how can I put this into a fallacy? And then I realized, looking at them, that one of them was finances, that a common usage of the composition fallacy is usually within finances. An example of it was, if everybody saves, if everybody saves, they will all be able to spend later in the future and get the same thing. So I was trying to think of it, and I'm not really sure if it works, but I'll have a go at it. My idea for a composition fallacy was, I think they say what pro-abortionists say is that if you get an abortion, then you'll be able to get what you want, your job, and therefore you will be able to make money in the future because you don't have the kid to take care for, and everything will work better. But if everyone gets an abortion, then that causes debt. That causes debt within that certain area. So since everyone's getting an abortion, it causes more debt than if few people at a time got an abortion and then they save more money. So, I gave you my example. Did any of you have an example? No? Okay, then.